It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for the morning, the Reverend Father Frank Pavone. Father Frank Pavone is one of the most prominent pro-life leaders in the world, and yet he's a humble hometown Westchester boy. He grew up just down the street in Port Chester, and his parents still live there. Father Frank was ordained in 1988 by Cardinal John O'Connor and has dedicated his entire life and ministry to ending abortion. In 1993, he requested and received permission to serve as the National Director of Priests for Life, the largest pro-life ministry in the Catholic Church. He is the president. Yes? He is the president of the National Pro-Life Religious Council and the National Pastoral Director of the Silent No More Awareness Campaign and of Rachel's Vineyard, the world's largest ministry of healing after abortion. The Vatican appointed Father Frank to the Pontifical Academy for Life and to the Pontifical Council for the Family to help coordinate the pro-life activities of the Catholic Church. Father Frank served on the pro-life and Catholic advisory boards of both of President Donald J. Trump's election campaigns. Father Frank received the Proudly Pro-Life Award from the National Right to Life Committee and numerous other pro-life awards and honorary doctorates. For me, Father Frank has been a major source of inspiration for my own work as a pro-life leader. In 2009, I professed vows as a missionary of the Gospel of Life, a lay movement established by Father Frank. One of the things I love about Father Frank is his courage in speaking the truth. He simply will not be silenced by anyone in speaking up for the babies. So please join me in a warm welcome for Father Frank Pavone.
Right, praise the Lord. You know, when I give talks, I always say it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm never kidding about that. It's an inspiration, because I get as much inspiration from pro-life people like you as hopefully I give as I go around the nation on this mission. But today, this morning here, it's more than just a pleasure. This is really special because, as Jerry mentioned, I grew up over in Port Chester. Westchester County Right to Life fanned the flames of my early involvement in this movement as a high school student at the Port Chester Senior High School. I didn't go to Catholic schools. The pro-life flame began burning in me because of the fact that the Westchester County had a bus go to Washington for the March for Life. It was the third annual March for Life. In 1976, my mom and my grandmother were going, and they said, "Would you like to come with us on this Right to Life March?" So I owe a great debt of gratitude to you and your predecessors leading I mean, this is a room full of leaders. I was telling Tom at the table, and Tom and Rob, thank you both for your leadership and organizing today, as well as Jerry. I'm very grateful, but you know, I said to Tom, you know, there are no spectators in this room. You're all leaders, you're all activists, you're all making it work. And I owe a debt of gratitude personally to you and your predecessors and all these Westchester Putnam organizations. But what an added pleasure and an added joy to think back to the 1976 March for Life, and perhaps some of you were marching even before that. It started in 74, as you know. To think how God has honored and answered the prayers, the sacrifices, the commitment, the marching, the praying, the voting, the educating, the broadcasting, the preaching, the counseling, the pregnancy centers, the healing after abortion, every facet of this movement. God Almighty has shown his faithfulness. On June the 24th of this year, he decided Roe would be no more. He showed his faithfulness. Hallelujah. It is a victory. We're still pinching ourselves in this movement. You know, this is a period, understand something. We're at the very, very, very beginning of this. This is a change. Many people did not expect it on both sides of the issue. And things are a little, frankly, things are a little disoriented right now. I mean, just the other day I was, as I do every quarter, and Chris comes to these meetings, leading the quarterly meeting of the National Pro-Life Leaders. We get together for a full day and exchange information and ideas, and we create strategies and plan joint action. And, you know, we were discussing this just the other day in Washington. It's still a very disorienting period of time, and it's going to be for a while for both sides. And we saw the initial rage response from the other side, and on our side we see sort of a feeling of disbelief. And, you know, we're quite aware that the work remains, and a lot of work remains, but we sort of have to regroup, and we have to recalibrate the movement and our strategies and our work. And you know, we're not always certain about how is this going to settle in. And of course now we have the elections coming up in 38 days. How is this going to feed into the elections? And I'll share a thought or two about that. But this we have to be patient with ourselves. We're at the very beginning of this, but what a victory it is, and we should be celebrating this victory. And brothers and sisters, I want to say, as I say when I speak in California, and I was just out in New Mexico, and New Mexico is, you know, like California and New York, you know, there's no limit to abortion. In fact, I prayed out in front of an abortion mill there where we had made some undercover phone calls, and we had a woman call into this facility. It's called Southwestern Women's Options in Albuquerque. And she said, she presented herself as a young mother, 30 weeks pregnant, okay, 30 weeks, and she said, she was asked, you know, is the baby healthy? Oh, yes, baby's perfectly fine, no problems at all. Well, how about you? You know, are you healthy? Oh, perfectly healthy, no problems at all. But I'd like to schedule an abortion because I realized I just can't take care of another child. Okay, they scheduled it for her. And how many people in the United States of America, and as a matter of fact, how many people in New York State really think that it should be legal? I mean, the argument here is not how often does it happen. That's not the question. The question is, do you think it should be legal for someone to call an abortion facility and then go in for an appointment when she's 30 weeks along and she's healthy and the baby's healthy and the baby can obviously survive outside the womb? Do you know anybody who would support something like that? Of course, there are the disconnected, extreme, radical, sick people in our country who do support that kind of thing. But they are few. They are in the minority. They always have been in the minority, even in New York, even among self-identified Democrats, even among self-identified pro-choice people. The American people do not want unlimited abortion. They simply don't. They never have. As a matter of fact, a recent Harris-Harvard poll that it's consistent with all the polling that's been done on this showed that 72% of Americans, in fact, when you break it down, you look at just independent voters, 70%. And you look just at Democrats, 60%. Say they don't think abortion should be allowed legally after 15 weeks of pregnancy. That's where we're at right now in America. So I don't want to hear any nonsense from the Democrat candidates or from anybody else telling me that we, who are calling for the protection of these babies, that we are the extremists. Oh no. What I want is a little bit of honesty from the other side. I want to see these Democrat candidates stand up. And instead of telling us, oh, well, we are in favor of women's rights and autonomy and reproductive choice. Look at even the names, right? In 2019, when New York State, with the lighting up of the Empire State Building and the, Reproductive Health Act. What in the world are you talking about? This has absolutely nothing to do with reproductive health. This is the destruction of reproduction and the destruction of women's health. I want these people, okay, starting with that person who thinks that she deserves to spend one day in the governor's office, which she doesn't. I want to see one sentence from the woman who thinks that she deserves to spend one day in the office of the Attorney General of New York, which she doesn't. She's a disgrace. They're both a disgrace. I don't know which one is worse. Anybody will take a poll? I don't know which one is worse. But up and down the ticket, you know better than I do. And some of you are in elected office and some of you are running for office, and it's an honor to be with you today, and I'm behind you 1,000%. Listen, we have to challenge these people to describe what they defend. Understand what I'm saying? They'll talk about, they're more shameless than ever about wanting unrestricted abortion. Look, they passed a law in New York, and the Democrats in Congress voted on it not once but twice in the current Congress to erase nationally any limitations, restrictions, or regulations on abortion. Now, we're even talking about parental involvement laws, which most states have, when a minor is going to get an abortion. They want to erase all these limitations, regulations, and restrictions. And they're shameless about it. However, there's one thing they will not do. They will not describe what they defend. What do I mean? If you took all the speeches that have been made by any candidates, legislators, academicians, any supporters of legal abortion, and you put them all in a computer and you did a word search of all these speeches, there are certain words I guarantee you will never find in any of those speeches. You know what those words include? Blood, arms, legs, skull, bones, forceps, dismember, decapitate. Those words you will not find in any of those speeches. You know where you will find all of those words? In the medical textbooks on how abortion is done. Now, brothers and sisters, if abortion is supposed to be such a great thing, why don't they tell us what it is? Why won't they tell the voters what it is? Why won't they be honest enough? I'm not asking them to quote from one of my books or our pro-life literature that we all create and distribute. I'm not asking them to quote from the Bible. I'm asking them to quote from the medical textbooks that talk about, well, let's see, a medical procedure called abortion. Well, this is what you're defending, or is it not? See, we have a project at Pastoral I've had for a number of years called "Is This What You Mean?" And the "Is This What You Mean" campaign, we've walked into the senators. When Clinton was a senator, when Obama was a senator, we walked into their office, Ted Kennedy, all these guys. And we would sit down with their key legislative aid. We would look for who's the person responsible for covering the issue of abortion for the senator. So we'd sit down with them, and I had the medical textbook with me, and I would read a line, the forceps, dismember, and decapitate the fetus. Okay. And I would look at the man or the woman across the desk and say, "Sir, ma'am, when the senator says the word abortion, is this what she means?" Notice something about that question. It's not asking them to prohibit it. It's not asking them to get behind any law. It's not asking them anything about policy. It's just asking them to describe what they defend. Tell us what do you have in your head when you say that word? You wouldn't believe some of the responses I got. Well, you would believe because you know what's going on. Literally someone said, we never thought of that before. And I say, you mean to tell me you're advising the senator on the issue of abortion and you can't even tell me what she means by the word? Are you kidding me? These people weren't happy with us. You know, one of the members of our team for 16 years has been Alveda King. Some of you have met her. I know she's spoken in Westchester and Putnam. And Alveda, she's still working with us and doing a great job. And she came with us in some of these meetings on Capitol Hill. And we have an office there, by the way, right behind the Supreme Court. And so I'll never forget one of the New Jersey senators. We go walking in, and there's this young aide at the front desk, and Alveda leads the way, and she says, hello, I'm Alveda King. I'm the niece of Martin Luther King Jr. And the guy stands up, and he's always all beaming from ear to ear. What an honor to meet you. I'm so happy to meet you. What a great way to start the day. And one of my associate priests who was standing next to Alveda said, yeah, well, hold on a second. Wait until you see how you feel after you find out why she's here. And so, listen, use this. Challenge the other side to describe what they defend. They are the ones who are the extremists on abortion. America doesn't want unlimited abortion, including in New York. And therefore, our representatives, it might be a good idea if our representatives in the legislature and in the governor's office started representing us.
That's right.
If a politician can't respect the life of a little baby, how's he or she supposed to respect yours? In this election, in every election, we have to elect public servants who know the difference between serving the public and killing the public. And if they don't know that difference, they don't belong in public office. And furthermore, what I just said must be proclaimed not just in the educational work that you do as a political action committee, as educational groups, and all the different organizations you represent here. It has to be proclaimed not only on the airwaves, radio, TV, internet. It has to be proclaimed from the pulpits. This message. I am proud to have been ordained a priest for the Archdiocese of New York by Cardinal John O'Connor, one of the great pro-life leaders of our time. And like Jerry said, I don't let anybody silence me, and I learned that from Cardinal O'Connor. And he said, you go forward and you proclaim the truth on this, and you let nobody hinder you. Neither outside the church nor in the church. Because, brothers and sisters, we're not talking here about matters simply of policy. You know, there's obviously arguments to be made, and I concur with them, for the neutrality of the church. The church was given by Jesus Christ a religious mission to lead people into the kingdom of God, to nourish them in their relationship with the Father as adopted sons and daughters, to bring us on the path to eternal life. The church was given a religious mission, not a political one. The church is not meant to be a political party. But brothers and sisters, while you can argue neutrality, especially when you say, well, there are policy disagreements between candidates, let them work out those disagreements through the process we have of public debate, legislative debate, policy making. You make a law, maybe it doesn't work out, then you can go in and change it. But we're not talking here about simply differences of policy. This is what we have to bring our people to understand very, very clearly right now. These are not just differences in policy. What's happening now in the battles between the Republican and Democrat Party, the battles between the right and the left, these are battles and disagreements over principles. not policies, principles. And principles such as, if I ever thought I'd spend my whole life in ministry, trying to say to people, you don't kill babies, Some people say I have a difficult job. I really don't. There's a lot of issues way more complex than that. You don't kill babies, folks. You don't kill babies. But that's my message, everybody who will listen. These are principles. You don't kill the innocent. Government cannot authorize abortion. They can pretend to authorize it. New York State has not authorized abortion. They've signed pieces of paper for policies that don't have the authority of the paper they're written on. No judge can authorize an abortion. No governor, no president, no Congress can authorize the killing of a baby. Brothers and sisters, these are principles. And when it comes to principles like the right to life, the freedom of the church, the right of parents to educate their children and not let them be indoctrinated, the right of a nation to secure its own borders and to preserve law and order in its communities. These are all principles. When we speak up about these principles and we call out those that are violating these principles, including in the political arena, that's not the church being political, that's the church being the church. That's the church being faithful. And so, brothers and sisters, it's amazing. It's a battle not only between good and evil. Isn't it a battle between common sense and insanity that we're dealing with today? I mean, today, like right now, it's like it's getting worse every day. And listen, maybe, you and I have been in this battle a long time for the unborn. Maybe we've come to the point in our culture where we can't say a man is a man or a woman is a woman. Maybe we've gotten to this point because for 50 years we've been saying a baby's not a baby. Think about it. When people try to deny gender, they're denying basic biology. Well, since when did we break from the demands of basic biology and the demands of truth? Well, I'll tell you exactly when. When we decided that we could call the unborn not a person. And okay, it's okay to destroy them. Since when is that not a baby? Since when is it a baby only when you choose that it's a baby and you want the baby, and when you don't, well, then you can do what you want? That was the break with reality. Everything that has come since then has been simply a natural outgrowth of the mistake we made back then. But something else has happened since then. That court decision that said you can't protect these babies. It's gone. It's gone. The basis, the foundation of, it's not just Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey that were overturned on June 24th. Listen, every decision of every court on abortion since then has in one way or another relied on Roe and Casey if it was a pro-abortion decision. Those decisions too have lost their foundation. Every law that has been passed based on the provision from Roe and Casey of a constitutional right to abortion has lost its foundation. So every law, every court case that built on the foundation of Roe and Casey can now be challenged anew. And whether we are talking about Louisiana or Mississippi, or whether we are talking about California or New York, the truth remains: there is not a judge, there is not a legislator, there is not a voter who can stand up and say anymore that there is a federal constitutional right to abortion. It is gone. Notice what happened with Roe. The abortion side of this debate was handed on a silver platter, created out of nowhere, a right to abortion. By the way, read the Dobbs decision if you haven't read it already. Basically, the constitutional arguments that are made there, which are, that's a masterpiece, okay, boils down, when it talks about, federal constitutional right to abortion, the argument boils down to 3 words. It's not there. It's not there in the Constitution. It's not there in the history. It's not there. It was never asserted in American life, in law, in jurisprudence, in scholarly treatises. It was never asserted up until the time of Roe v. Wade. It's not there. So what I'm saying is, for 50 years, the pro-abortion people that you and I have been debating with and battling with, they haven't had to make their case to the American public or to their lawmakers. Good thing, because you know what? They don't have a case to make. Abortion is not defensible. So what have they done? How have they progressed, therefore, all during these decades? Well, very simple. They went and hid behind, like little tiny children, they went and ran and hid behind the robes of the justices. Oh, it's a constitutional right. It's a constitutional right. And that's their argument. Even now. What do we see? We see it here in New York. We see it happening in Michigan. We see it happening in California on the ballot this year. We see it happening in Vermont. A number of other states have done it already, where these pro-abortion people who do not have a case to make, instead of arguing on its merits, whether abortion is right or wrong, they still want to hide behind the robes of those justices. And so if they can no longer hide behind the Supreme Court justices, well, then they want to hide behind the state court justices. Let's put it in our state constitution that there's a right to abortion. Oh yeah? Well, where in our history of the United States are you going to find that? When the Supreme Court just showed in a masterful way that it was never there. You see, Dobbs affects New York. Even we know abortion is, this is going to be, like California, a haven for abortion. But let me tell you what I told the people of California recently. He said, oh, Father Frank, our Governor Gavin Newsom, he wants to make California a sanctuary state for abortion. I said, listen, and I say this to you about New York. Whether California, whether New York becomes a sanctuary state for abortion is not up to Governor Newsom. It's not up to Governor Hochul. It's up to you. It's up to the people. Because we govern ourselves in this country. So, and can you change things? Oh, we know there's a toughness about New York pro-lifers, isn't there? Isn't there? We know it. Because when you have to grow up in this movement and when you have to make the case when the wind is blowing in your face instead of at your back, you learn something about toughness and perseverance and focus and courage and determination and trust in one who is stronger than we are. We can make it happen. We do what we've always done. We make our case for the unborn. The other side can't hide anymore behind judges. They have to make the case for abortion. And they're going to have an awful hard time doing that, even here in New York. This kind of New York toughness, of course, is displayed by the person we're honoring today, who's been a friend and colleague of mine for a very long time, Chris Slattery. And he embodies what the movement represents. We've been, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand in the political battles, legal battles, educational efforts, strategic meetings, but also in the primary work that he's done, the provision of alternatives to abortion, because this is a movement, brothers and sisters, that takes the words that summarize the gospel, to summarize God's intervention in human history, and we make it real for moms and dads and grandparents and families who feel they must resort to abortion. What are the words we use? It's not I condemn you, I judge you. It's not that. It's four very simple words. I am with you. We say to those who feel they must have an abortion, I am with you. We say to those who have had abortions and are suffering the devastating grief, I am with you. We are with you. Brothers and sisters, that's what Chris's work embodies and will continue to embody. And nothing stops him. We have these meetings, and my colleagues and I in pro-life leadership, where the discussion, Chris, you must know, during these days is, isn't this amazing? We're all praying for Chris's health. But here he is at a meeting in Washington. And here he is, and we go to an event. I went to an event in Florida with Governor DeSantis. By the way, Governor DeSantis sends his regards, okay? And, you know, and in the arena of governors, he sends his condolences, okay? But he also sends his thumbs up. He says, things will improve. Things will improve. But listen, if you need a respite, just come down, be with us for a while. But you know, Governor DeSantis signs a pro-life bill, and I turn around and there's Chris Slattery's there. And then this summer, I go out to a big conference in California. I turn around and there's Chris. Isn't it wonderful? The unstoppable spirit, that's what we all must have. And spiritually speaking, the trust and the serenity. Our lives have always been in the hands of God. You know, when things are going well, right, when our health is 100%, you know, it's a little bit of an illusion. And somehow we're, you know, okay, Lord, that's all right. I don't have to worry too much about you. I'm doing okay. And when everything's going well, we have that little temporary illusion. And then when things are really going bad, and then we kind of have to remember, you know what? We're dependent on God, every single one of us, at every instant. If God stopped thinking about us for one split second, we would go out of existence. The constant trust we have to have in God leads to a constant serenity, a peace, even a joy. And Chris has displayed that. It continues to display that. It's a great, great example. So we thank you for that example of faith. Thank you, those in, I know there's at least one person here when New York passed that extreme abortion law in 2019. I know Putnam County passed that resolution objecting to that law. God bless you for doing that. That's the example. And I know, you know, because, and remember, we're in a stronger position now to do that kind of thing because the Dobbs decision left the abortion policy of the United States in the hands of the people and their elected representatives. Now take that to heart. That doesn't just mean, oh, it goes back to the states. That's a rather, that's a partial way of saying that the truth is it's going back to the people and their elected representatives. And that means the Congress, that means the states, that means the county and local governments too. It's in your hands, with us, the people, all of us together, and let nobody take it out of your hands. And that's why we resist this effort in New York to put abortion in the Constitution. No, it doesn't belong there. It was never there. We're not going to let it be forced into our Constitution. It's simply not there. And as far as Westchester County passing this reproductive health facilities freedom of access measure, oh my goodness, please give me a break. It's not about going in and out of a medical facility, for goodness sake. It's about killing children and the right of us to intervene. And let me tell you something Mother Teresa told me when Clinton signed the federal version of that, okay? You can't intimidate, but by the way, you can't intimidate anybody going into a reproductive health facility. Could you answer me a question? How are you supposed to legislate against intimidating somebody? Tell me, when it comes to law, to avoid unconstitutional vagueness, you've got to tell me exactly what kind of activity you're prohibiting me to do. You can't tell me not to intimidate somebody because that's subjective. I don't know what's going to intimidate somebody. I was handing out literature very peacefully in front of an abortion facility numerous times, and the pro-abortion protesters said, well, if that's not intimidation, I don't know what is. And I said, yeah, you're right, you don't know what it is. But you're right? I mean, you can't pass a law telling me not to intimidate somebody because I don't know what in the world you're talking about. Sometimes people are intimidated because I'm dressed like this, some people, right? Well, you can't tell me the action you want me to do or not do. That's what law is supposed to be able to do if it's going to be constitutional. But the point is, listen, I told Mother Teresa just a few months after Bill Clinton signed that FACE law, I said, Mother, look what they did here in the United States. You can't peacefully blockade an abortion facility. Even if you approach a woman, you can be accused of breaking federal law. You know what she said? And I'll conclude with this. She said, Father, if we had that law in India, I would have been thrown in jail many times. Because I go to the places where the abortions happen. And I go up to the mothers and I take them by the arm. Imagine Mother Teresa is about this tall. I take them by the arm and I pull them away. And I bring them to a place of hope where our sisters can care for them and their babies. You're the people of hope. The mission of this movement is to replace despair with hope. Because it's not about freedom. It's not about freedom, Governor. It's not about freedom, Democrats. It's not about freedom of choice. It's about despair. It's despair that leads people to the abortion clinic. And you and I redouble our commitment today with Chris as a beautiful example of restoring hope in the hearts of everyone facing any difficulty, of letting them know we are with you, and of letting our whole society know that we will indeed restore and see again, even in New York, a marvelous culture of life. Keep doing it. God bless you.